I work for Oh, recording in progress. Okay, good, good, good. Okay, so all right. Yeah, my name is Jitesh Doshi. The recording is happening, just so you know. So guess what you say or what you share. Um, I will show you a production setup at the very end after we stop recording. Okay, but and before that, I will show you a lot of toys, some toy setups and all that. So today's presentation is about Meilisearch. It's a search engine that will take, so it's in the vein of Solar Search and Elasticsearch, and as Taylor mentioned, Algolia Search, which is not self-hosted, it's not open source as far as I know. It's a software as a service. So Algolia is a software as a service, but Solar, Elasticsearch, and Meilisearch. And I've heard another one called Zinc. It's in Go. I've never tried it, but that is, if you guys are interested, you should probably check it out. The stuff that I'm going to show you, obviously it's going to be recorded and hopefully Eric will post it somewhere. But also I will be posting, not today, but tomorrow I'll post a Git repo, public GitHub repo, so that you guys can have access to all of the source code. There'll be a reasonable README, hopefully. Okay, so that I will do tomorrow. As you can tell, I'm very highly prepared. I just started looking into it an hour ago. So I hope you guys will learn something. Now, why do we need search engines? That's the base. So that's the first question. Why would you need a search engine? You would need a search engine when you want to look through your data and a SQL query is not going to get you what you want. That could be one reason. An SQL query with a like clause may not always work. Right? If you have one column through which you want to search through, then like clause might get you pretty close. But what if you have 15 columns across, who knows what? And I'll show you an example of that. Solar, and that's one thing. Second thing is, what about ranking? If you want to rank based on certain things. Again, you do have order by clause in SQL, but it's very strict. So that's, what about typo tolerance? You mistype something, a couple of characters misplaced here and there. So a search engine should take care of that as well. A search engine should be able to consider multiple ranking attributes. So sorting attributes, more than one. And all those things. So once your searching needs become more and more complex, you realize that you probably need a search engine. But there is a completely different set of reasons that one might have to, to have a search engine. For example, what if you have, 2 billion records? So then, and you don't really need to, it's read-only data. You don't really, like you scrape, for example, you're a, we have a situation, I will show once we stop recording, something where the customer has scraped a huge number of websites and, wants to doesn't want to actually store the billion records, only wants to search through them and doesn't want to edit them and all that. So storing that in a Postgres SQL database, and then it might be more than what you want. And I will show you how we are loading data into Meilisearch, and that might be another thing that you might like, because Meilisearch can consume JSON data as is, no transformation, nothing, just give me JSON. So with all that, once you are convinced that you do need a search engine, the question is which search engine. So I have used Solar quite extensively, and I have used Elasticsearch. somewhat less extensively, but still I have used it. And my default, my starting solution was Elasticsearch because I assumed that is the one that does everything and so on and so forth. But I looked at the amount of, we did set up Elasticsearch as our solution first, but pretty soon I saw the amount of effort I was putting into it, my team was putting into it to load all the data, and we felt that it was quite a bit. And then we looked around and we found Meilisearch, and at first we had no expectations from it. And then we started loading data, and we saw how easy it was and how fast it was to to load data, and B, to search through it, and adding filterable criteria, adding sortable attributes, and typo tolerance and all those things. So we thought, okay, that looks good. So let me now show you what we have. Okay, and as I show you, some of these use cases become clearer as I show Meilisearch in action. Can you share my screen?
Jitesh, just to interrupt. If you want me to stop recording, just let me know. I can click
Yeah,
stop.
yeah. You don't have to do it just yet. I'll probably do that at the very, very end when we are not recording. Okay. So right now this is okay. So I'm going to start with the Meilisearch UI. I have already installed it, but then I'm going to drop it and remove it and destroy it and start over. Okay. Because if I start from Docker pull and so on and so forth, then you probably you might get bogged down into Docker details. So this is a Meilisearch instance running on my laptop. I have loaded 28,767 movies from some open database. And trust me, in my other places, I've loaded 2 million just to start out. Eventually, I will be loading billion plus records. But in our local environment, we start with 2 million records at a time. In production, there are at least 400 million, I think. Okay, and we are still loading. Our scrapers are running and loading data. Okay, so Meilisearch, it's an HTTP application. It's primarily an HTTP API, REST API. That's what it is. That's your interface to it. But they have a little bit of a UI. Okay, it's not that fantastic, but it's a UI. It's something to start with. So this is right now I have no API keys, no password, nothing in place. That's why API key is blank. Because I just want to show it to you. I have one index in it called movies. You can create an index, and I'll show you how to do that. This index. So whenever you're working with a search engine, I don't know about other search engines, but in Meilisearch, an index can be thought of like a table. Think of an index in a search engine as similar, analogous to a table in a database. Okay, and there are 28,767 records. You could think of Meilisearch as a document database, and each one is a document. So there is title. The movie has a title: After Dark in Central Park, from the year 1900. Cast apparently is blank, empty array. Genre, empty array. This ID is something that I generated. I had to generate because every Meilisearch document must have an ID. Okay, so that's why I had to generate this ID, and I'll show you what it means. Let me show you the source of this. So the source data. There is movies.json. This is movies.json. This is the data. Okay, and I downloaded it from the internet. I just said, large JSON data sample. So and I found this J. Dorfman awesome JSON data sets. So I went and I looked at a few things. There were some really big one, but I did not have enough time to actually load those. So I ended up loading the one from movies. Yeah, this one. So this American movies from Wikipedia. This is the one when I go there, it will, yeah, that's the one. Okay. So this one, a slightly better formatted one version is this. Okay. So this is the data that I loaded. And now, if you wanted to search through it, you just type something in here. Let me type dark. And so this is dark secrets, 154 hits. So it matches in the title, but title is not the only place where it will match. And there should be, can load more. There should be others. In this case, most of them is in. Okay, let me do another search, like cruise, Tom Cruise kind of cruise. So this is cruise, but then as you keep going, there should be, oh yeah, so see, losing it. There's a cruise somewhere else other than in the title. There it is, Tom Cruise. So it's basically searching through not just title, but also through the cast array and genres array. Okay. So if yeah, risky business, obviously. We all know that one. So so this is free text search. That's not the only form of search that it allows. So before we go much further in this, now that you have a very basic idea of what kind of data to load into Meilisearch and how to search through it, again, in a free text search form. Before we get back to more advanced search techniques, let me destroy this setup that I have. Basically, I'm going to remove this pre-setup that I had. Right? So let me just do that. If you see, I have this container running. Right? This is my container called MS1, and it uses getmeili/Meilisearch. That's the Docker image. Now, some of you, I'm not sure if everybody is familiar with Docker, so I apologize if I'm doing things that that are not familiar to you. Can I ask the group how many of us are familiar with Docker? Well, Eric, I see your hand up, but you're on mute. That's fine. Anybody else? If you are, I cannot see anyone, but yeah, let me know if.
Seems like a few people are.
Okay, they raised their hand. I couldn't see. So okay. So any case, so so we could do another one on Docker, but this one I'll assume that you know basics of Docker. So how do you run Meilisearch? First, let me kill this one. Okay, Docker stop ms1, and if I do Docker ps now, it's not running. -a, it has removed that one. Let me see Docker rm. What is this one? Blissful Human. Yeah. So that's also gone. And I have no more Docker. None of the Docker instances are running. So to start Meilisearch, to download and run and whatever, right? I have a little cheat sheet here. Oh, I don't have a cheat sheet, I guess. Yeah. Okay, no problem. I'll just say, so you say Docker. Yeah, this one. I'm saying Docker run, give it a name, ms1. Okay, Meilisearch one. You can give it any name you want. --rm means delete this container once I stop it. I can do that. Let me remove that part. And then D as in detach from the console once you are running. So run in the background basically. And this is the Meilisearch image, getmeili/Meilisearch. So if you go to if you go to hub.docker.com, you will find it. Like if I search for this, it's on hub.docker.com. This is where it is. Meilisearch, and there is no documentation, etc. in this. So I guess it's not very helpful there. So, but this is how you run Meilisearch. Okay, I'm going to run it. It's running. And if I say docker ps-a, there's Meilisearch running. If I look at the logs, it says, thank you for using Meilisearch. The server is listening on port 7700, right? It is storing data in data.ms inside the container, not outside. So if you wanted to save it outside the container, you should mount this volume, bind it to some local directory. It's a directory, by the way. We collect analytics, blah, blah, blah. So you can read that, all that information. If you want to read documentation, go to docs.meilisearch.com. Here's the source code, here's the contacts, etc., etc. Right now it's running 4 workers. So yeah, there's one very important thing. One of the reasons why I got attracted to Meilisearch was also because it's written in Rust. So it's pretty fast and it's very low resource consumption oriented. So it's using Actix runtime. If those of you who are familiar with Rust and the web applications in Rust should recognize Actix. Actix is one of the nice web frameworks for Rust. All right, so there are 4 workers running, 4, you could say, threads, if you want. Okay. Right now, my Meilisearch is completely empty. So if I go to, I want to hit this port 7700. How do I hit it? First, I need to find out the IP address of this container. If I say Docker container inspect ms1, it tells me the IP address of 172.17.0.2. So that's what I will put, and then the port number 7700. Press enter. Oops, damn. I didn't do what I wanted to do. Okay, yeah. So this is my Meilisearch server out of the box. It has no index, and it has forget the API key, meaning to say it has no data stored. And an index is basically a collection of data. All documents in an index, they must have the same primary key column. That's it. That's the only thing is required. Other than that, they can have any other additional columns. And I cannot search for anything because there's no data in there. So now our next thing is to load some data. So if we load some data, before we can load data, we need to create a table, or more precisely, an index. So let's create an index. So to create an index, I have a little cheat sheet here. So you basically you send a post request, and the data that you send is application JSON. And I'm assuming you are familiar with curl. Those of you think of it like Postman, but from the command line based Postman, I guess, CLI Postman. So I'm going to post this data. This is the definition. This is the complete definition of my index. So all I'm giving is the name of the index and nothing else. UID, unique ID of my index, is movies. The name of the ID of my index is movies. That's all it is. And I'm expressing that as JSON. So Meilisearch, for the most part, consumes JSON like this. So I'm saying this is the definition of my index. The content type of the format, data format, is application JSON. And I am posting to 172.17.0.2, port 7700. That's the Meilisearch URL, /indexes. That's the route. Okay. All right, let's press enter. Meilisearch does not do anything synchronously, almost, other than searching. All the modification operations are asynchronous. So what it did was it basically created a task with a unique ID of 0, and that task is enqueued. Did it succeed or did it fail? We don't know. We can find out. I could just, if I just refresh this, I'll know. But let me show you another way of doing it, which is if you just say curl fetch me 172.0.0.2:7700 / tasks / 0. So that will tell you what happened to task number 0. And the answer is succeeded. Good. It's created. This thing has no primary key because I never specified a primary key. I specified the name of the index movies. I did not say what's the primary key. Meilisearch will look for something ID, anything that says ID or something underscore ID, and use that as the primary key. We'll see that in a minute. At this point, if I come to the Meilisearch UI and refresh this, I can see one index movies there. At this point, we have the index of the table, but we have no data, no documents, no rows in it. So that's the next task. If I show you the movies JSON, that's the movies.json. If I try to load this data, it will fail. It will fail because there is no primary key, no ID in this. Meilisearch requires an ID, but let's try it anyways. So whenever you want to load some data into Meilisearch, what you have to do is you have to post application JSON to indexes / the index name movies / documents, and then you give it some data. So to show you, I'm just going to try something like, okay, title, test movie, and then close that. Right. Let's try this if this works at all. Right. So if I press enter, it again says status unqueued, and the task ID is 1. I could get that by looking for task ID 1, and it says failed. It failed. And the problem is the primary key interface process failed because the engine did not have any fields containing ID substring in their name. So yeah, basically you never gave me anything that looks like an ID. So to make it, a second try would be I give it an ID of, and then ID equal to something random like that. So let's try that. I press enter. This time the task number 3 hopefully should be, oops, task 3 not found. What was it? Oh, task 2, sorry. Yeah, it succeeded. Anyway, I don't have to keep checking tasks. I can basically come back here and refresh. And when I refresh, now I have movies, one movie in it, ID equal to some random string. Here's the test movie. It's good, fine. But as you know, our movies.json does not have an ID. So if I could actually try to post it and it won't work. Let me show you. Instead of pasting this data, I could say @d @movies.json. I do that, it enqueued. If I look at the tasks, it'll say failed. Yeah, failed by because document doesn't have an ID attribute after dark in central part, no ID attributes. Okay, so how do I give it an ID attribute? Not a problem. We can generate an ID by doing this. So let me show you what I'm doing here. We can use JQ. JQ is a JSON query tool. It takes, so I'm just going to take movies.json, cat it into JQ, and then I'm doing some base64 mumbo jumbo gobbledygook. And in the end, what it produces is the movie original like it was plus an ID. And this ID itself is generated by taking title, adding dash to it, adding year to it, and then base64 encoding, and then removing some unwanted characters, and you get the ID. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. Doesn't matter. The goal was to create a unique string, which is what we got. Okay, Now that we have a unique string, I can save this into a file, into another one. So movies 2.json. Okay. If I save it, and now I have movies 2.json, and it has an ID like we want. Okay. And it is a very large. It's a large file with 28,000 array elements. At this point, if I go back to posting data into Meilisearch, which is this part, and I just replace movies with movies 2.json, and I press enter. And I'm not going to check the status of that task. I'm just going to go to this and refresh. And as you can see, 28,000 have been loaded. That was quick. I mean, once you have data, JSON data in a form that that Meilisearch is able to consume, loading is very quick. One thing I do want to mention that indexing of that data happens asynchronously, meaning to say you might be looking at the data and yet when you actually search, it may not match. So that's something asynchronous. Okay, so actually no, I take that back. The data won't show up, and this enqueuing will happen instantaneously. But then if let's say you loaded 10 million records, and it by the way, I have, let me see, when we load 20,000 records, so it consumes about, on my laptop it consumes about 20,000 records every 5 seconds. So including a lot of indexing that we do. Okay, so yeah, because we do some serious amount of indexing. If you don't have much indexing, then it will be faster than that. And that's just on my laptop. Okay, so now you got this movies database. Now, how do you search through it? So the way you search, I mean, I was typing into this. I was typing dark like here, and it shows up. But that doesn't teach you anything about how to. That's a UI? That's not an API, right? So let's use its API to search. Okay, that's the next thing to do. So if we want to use the API, we say curl. Again, I'm saying curl. Very soon, I'm going to show you some JavaScript code, front-end code. That way, most of us are React developers here, so we'll understand it better. Okay, so curl. Now you can do a post, but I'm not going to do post. I'm going to do a simple get. Because post in HTTP semantics is supposed to modify data, and search should not modify data, right? So 172.17.0.2 port 7700 indexes movies, and then search. That's the endpoint, and it takes at least one parameter. It can take multiple, and that is Q. I'll put the word dark in there and see what happens. So as you can see, it generated a bunch of output. It's hard to read this way, so I'm going to use this, my favorite handy dandy JQ. If you pipe it through JQ, then it gets nicely, not only well formatted, but also color coded. It's nice, much easier to read. So it basically produces an object. So this is Meilisearch, which is the result format. It produces an object with one field called hits, which is which is an array of all the matches, and those are all the objects. And at the end of it, that's the end of that hits array. Number of hits 154. So you will notice that it did not return all 154. It returned a portion of them. It returned only 20. And then offset is 0, meaning so it's starting at 0. It took 4 milliseconds to do that. Exhaustive number of hits false. I don't know what that means. Any case, rather than doing it on the terminal like this, I could just copy this URL because it's a get. So I can just copy this URL here and paste it into my browser. And there, it's a much better experience, I guess. So that's there. Now, these are my hits. This is the whole document being returned. You can, if you have a large document and you want a subset of the columns, there is syntax for that, which I will show you in a minute. Okay, so these are the, so if you, there are 20 in under hits. If you want to see the next page, you just provide an offset of 20. And if I press enter, now you see, hopefully, if anybody remembers what the first one was, but these should be a very different list. And now, so the offset was 20 and limit is still 20. Right? And if I keep doing that, increasing the offset, that one was dark water, and now it's the dark hour, and so on and so forth. So this is how we are paginating through the results. There are 154 of them. How do I know that? I know it through this field, NB hits. Okay. All right. So that's the search. Now it's very hard for us to use this interface. I'm going to. So first I started with a curl interface, which was pretty hard. Then I'm using this straight URL query string interface, which is slightly better because it's in a browser, but it's still a problem. Okay, so hold on, somebody, what is that? Okay, next, I'm going to use an actual front-end UI to do that. Okay, so here I have an application where I can, this is a JavaScript application. And if I type dark into this and enter search, okay, something is broken. Is it working? Okay, something is not working. Oh, yeah, okay, something was broken. Okay, so I typed that, and now I've set a limit of 10, so it's showing 10 at a time. And this is the movie title. This is the year, drama, genres, basically, drama and crime. And this is the cast, and so on and so forth. So I'll give a quick pause. I'm sure people have some questions. I want to pause for questions and go further after this. Any questions?
Is there any built-in tooling to determine the frequency of, like, if someone was querying a certain keyword, that you could cache it or something like that?
Good question. I'm not aware of such thing. I mean, it is caching, yes. So whenever I search for something and search for it the second time, it does come back faster. So it's doing some caching internally. Meilisearch, just so you know, uses LMDB. LMDB, I don't know what LM stands for, but it's a memory map database. So the Meilisearch file, the storage file, which I mean, one could say Docker exec to ms1, let's run the shell. Sorry, my bad. So this is what I was saying. This is the file, data.ms, right? This is the directory, sorry. So Meilisearch is storing all of its data indexes in data.ms, and it's using MDB, data.mdb, and that is an LMDB file. Right now it's only 61 kilobytes. Wait, no, not that. In indexes, I should find it. Indexes. Yeah, so that's the data. Yeah, it's not, that's about 44 megabyte amount, which is large. My own data is very small, if you see my data. So movies.json is only 6 megabytes, but the index itself was 44 megabytes. So obviously the index is much larger than the source data itself. That's because it's indexing on a lot of columns and everything. So to answer your question was, is there caching. Now there is no front-end caching layer, but Meilisearch itself internally must be caching because the same query repeated multiple times does return faster. And I believe the reason why it is faster is because it does, LMDB uses memory mapped files. So this index file, this 44 MB index file, this one, this one, data.mdb, it's getting memory mapped. So if you are familiar with memory mapping, then you would know that virtual, basically it uses that disk, that file on disk as virtual memory, which means it indexes the microprocessor is indexing directly random access into that file. So
Thank you.
Anything else? So I can, what I wanted to do was I wanted to, certain things that I myself have not shown you any indexes and ranking and all that. That is the part that I wanted to do. I did not prepare for it ahead of time. So, so we'll see. If I wanted to, right now, if I search for cruise, right, then I see cruise in the title. What if I wanted to only find Tom Cruise or just anybody with a cruise in their name, but as as a cast member, not in the movie title? So in order to do that, since I don't remember most of this stuff, so I'm just going to go to Meilisearch documentation, which is doc.meilisearch.com, and we say filter, look for filter. So here it is filtering. There it is. And so if you want a specific, filtering and sorting, yeah. So a specific, first you have to, okay, settings, don't worry about that. Here's the filtering. You say filter, then column, and an operator, and the operand, the other operand, right? Which basically means I should be able to do, you know how I was doing dark earlier? Yeah, this one. I should be able to say, forget about Q equal to dark or even cruise, right? There are 51 hits, right? I want to say where the cast contains cruise, only cast, not the title, right? So in order to produce that, what I have to do is I have to say filter, and then according to this, filter mass less, so it will be cast basically. Filter cast. The colon, is it? Cast equal to. I mean, I know how to do this in using JSON, but I don't want to use JSON because if I use JSON, I will have to use post, I think. Let's see if I can do this. So data binary filter equal to mass. Okay, so filter equal to cast cruise. Is it like that? Let's find out. Cast is not filterable. Okay, good. So this is what I wanted to show you. When I created this index, I did not set cast as filterable. If you don't, so if it is not filterable, it won't let you use cast like that. So let's fix that. And there is a solution that the documentation says how to make something filterable. And the answer is you post to an endpoint called within the index called settings. So index name movie / settings, and then you add something called filterable attributes, and you give it an array of those that are filterable. So that's what I'm going to do. Okay. So I will first, let me get the settings out of this. If I say get, go into movies index and get the settings. Okay, yeah, I should probably pass it through JQ to make it readable. So as you can see, displayed attributes all are displayed by default. Searchable, all are searchable. Filterable is empty. You cannot target. It's like saying what can go into a where clause. That's what this is. Sortable is sort of what can go into an order by class. And ranking rules is the default rank. You know, first the words, then look for typo match, then proximity in case geo-searching is on, then look in attributes, I guess, attribute names, I suppose. I don't know everything in that, but anyway, let's. So these are the settings. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to post to settings, and obviously the content type will be application JSON, and the data will be filterable attributes. The value is an array, and the close of the object, and then I will put cast as one of the filterable attributes. While I'm at it, let's put genres as well, in case we want to search by genre. Okay, enter, and that's done. Now in this particular case, I should specifically find out the status of that particular task, because if that failed, there will be nothing visible for me. Okay, so I copy. I say tasks 5. Let's find out what happened to task 5. The status is succeeded. Okay, now the filter, these two were added. Now, if I go back to my Meilisearch UI, I should see no change. Nothing at all will change, because the data did not change. What happened is we got some more indexes. If I look for cruise, I still find 51 hits, and it starts looking in the title, and then it also looks into the cast. Okay, that's not a big deal. But now I want to really look for it only in the cast. For that, I go back and I run this query. Let me clear this. So this is curl get /indexes/movies/search question mark, no Q. There is no Q anymore, but filter equal to, and then I'm saying cast equal to cruise. Let's see what happens. And it returned nothing. So wait, something. I suppose cast is not matching cruise directly. What if I try for a genre? Let's see. So here, for example, mystery. I'm going to do that. Cast genre equal to mystery. Okay, that returns something. So these are the genre equal to mystery results. So I'm wondering why. I think what is happening is it has to be exactly one. If Tom Cruise was the only person, and by the way, it is equal to, which means it has to match just Cruise, not Tom. Let me try this. Tom plus Cruise. Will that work? Found unexpected threat. End of the filter. Okay. Cast equal to Cruise, like that. Okay, let me put quotes around it. Will that work?
Can you make this case sensitive, or is that not the case for these types of databases?
I can make it case sensitive, but I probably don't want to. But yeah, I think by default they're not case sensitive. Illegal, it doesn't like the format somehow. Let me try if this still what is the issue here? How about plus? Then it says found unexpected characters. This is Meilisearch telling me that found at end of the filter cruise. You probably forgot or and blah blah blah. So I don't quite know. Okay, so something is not right. So I have my production system, and I don't fully understand all of these things. I guess how to get a space in there, but at least okay. Without space, we were able to do the other one, which is genre. Okay, there if I say genre equal to drama, that kind of works. Oops, sorry. What happened? What did I do wrong again? Genres. Yeah, genres. Yeah. So I got genres equal to drama, and there are 8,739 matches. If I say horror, that works. Okay. All right. So sorry, I don't know Meilisearch that deeply apparently. There is a way. I mean, Meilisearch has good documentation. I think pretty good documentation, and we are using it quite extensively. Actually, if we stop recording, then I can probably I will be able to share some more info.
Can do.
So yeah,